When we think about cyber threats, we usually picture these really complex technical attacks from some shadowy group, right? But what if the biggest dangers aren't hiding in code, but are actually sitting right there in plain sight? Today, we're going to break down the invisible threats that are really defining modern cybersecurity, from simple human mistakes to the hidden risks in the tools you rely on every single day.
So, let's just jump right in with a question that gets to the absolute heart of the matter. How can one single mistaken email cause a massive data leak? I'm talking exposing competitive information on almost 2,000 business partners. I know, it sounds like something out of a spy movie, but the reality? It's way simpler and honestly a lot more common than you'd think.
And that right there brings us to our first major threat: plain old human error. We're not talking about some malicious insider or a sophisticated hack. Nope. We're talking about a simple click, a wrong name in the to field, and the enormous consequences that can spiral out from just a momentary lapse in concentration. Okay, before we dive deeper, we need to get this term straight: data exposure. This is really different from a data breach. A breach is when a hacker actively breaks in. Exposure, well, that's more like an accident. It's when sensitive info is just left unprotected or sent to the wrong person, making it visible to people who should have never, ever seen it. So look at how this actually happened at the cloud company Pax8. It's almost boring, really. Just 3 simple steps. An employee makes the spreadsheet, something we all do. Then, with one wrong click, they share it incorrectly. And boom, just like that, sensitive partner data is out in the open, creating a huge risk. The scariest part? No hacking was required at all.
So, here's the bottom line on this one. Your biggest vulnerability might not be some flaw in your firewall. It might just be a broken process or a simple moment of human error. You can have the most secure systems in the world, but they can be completely bypassed by one person sending one email to the wrong address. All right, this leads us perfectly into our next threat, because you can have your own house in perfect order, but what about your neighbors? In the digital world, your neighbors are all those software services. The SaaS platforms that your company uses every single day. Their vulnerability can become your vulnerability in a heartbeat.
The Grubhub incident is a perfect example of this. Look, Grubhub itself wasn't directly hacked. The attackers found a side door. They went after a trusted, connected tool, Salesloft, and they stole something called an OAuth token. Think of it like a digital key that lets apps talk to each other. Once they had that key, they could just walk right past all of Grubhub's main defenses.
And this is a huge, growing problem. This quote right here points to something called the shared responsibility model. Basically, it means when you use a cloud service, security is a partnership. They secure the cloud platform itself, but you are responsible for securing what you do in the cloud. And as we see more and more breaches happening through these third-party tools, it's a pretty stark reminder that you can't just pay a vendor and forget about security. And now for our third threat, and this one is arguably the most aggressive. When you hear ransomware, you probably picture your files being locked up with a scary message demanding money to get them back. Well, that's old news. The game has totally changed, and the attackers have gotten way more vicious. Just look at this comparison. The old way was basically kidnapping your files. The new method, it's called double extortion. Before they lock a single thing, they sneak in and steal copies of your most sensitive data: customer lists, financials, trade secrets. So now the threat isn't just about getting your files back. It's about them threatening to post your deepest corporate secrets online for the whole world to see. The leverage they have is just immense.
And let's be clear, this is not some rare, hypothetical threat. 501. That is the number of security incidents that were publicly reported in Japan in just the first 11 months of 2025. And that's only what's been made public. It just goes to show you, these attacks are happening all the time. It's becoming a routine part of doing business if you're not prepared. So, how do you get prepared?
Okay, so we've laid out the threats: internal mistakes, compromised partners, and this new nasty ransomware. I know, it sounds pretty bleak, but there is a modern playbook for defense. It's all about shifting your focus from just building taller walls to creating a smarter, more resilient security culture. Here it is, the expert strategy, and it breaks down into 3 core lines of defense. First, you have to fortify your human processes. That's how you prevent that Pax8 situation. Better training, smarter rules for handling data. Second, you map all your software dependencies. This is how you defend against the Grubhub problem. You need to know who your partners are, understand your shared security role, and have a backup plan for when their systems go down. And third, you shift your focus to protecting the data itself, not just the systems. This is how you counter the new ransomware. You have to assume attackers might get in, and your goal is to make absolutely sure they leave empty-handed.
And that leaves us with one final, really critical question to think about. We all get why it's important to lock the front door to our office, right? But in today's world, our companies have dozens, maybe hundreds, of digital doors connecting us to all our partners and software vendors. So the real question is, who's guarding those doors? Who is watching your digital supply chain?